Okay, welcome back. Well, yesterday, that is where we will start off today. And it is from Abuja as well. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Chamberlain, and good morning to the rest of the crew and Nigerians. Yes, indeed, we have our very first guest here. Oladimeji Fabiyi is a member of the PDP, and he'll be talking about the content of the 2019 election review, which the PDP carried out amongst its ranks there. You're welcome to Sunrise Elite this morning.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm sure a lot of people have seen this. Merit rather than zoning will be the main consideration of the People's Democratic Party as it goes forward into elections moving forward. Some people will say, first and foremost, why has it taken this long for a review of the 2019 elections to come up?
Well, thank you very much. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the leadership of the party for creating a platform, to bring about a roadmap that will lead Nigeria out of the woods, not just but through PDP. And secondly, I want to commend the efforts of the committee too, Governor Bala-led committee, for doing a very good job, for coming up with those far-reaching recommendations that will actually help Nigeria, help PDP, as it were. Now to your questions, I don't think it's too late. It's never too late because something counts, something really matters in a nation building, and that's experience. You recall that PDP was in power, was in government for about 16 years, and then throughout these 16 years of leadership, a lot of things, came to bear. The exigencies of those times are quite different from what we're having now. So now what PDP has done is to respond to what Nigeria actually need now. Is a response to that. It's not too late. It's a deliberate response, to getting Nigeria working again, to getting Nigeria out of the present state we are. So for me, I think is a step, is a decision, is an action in the right direction. And
I'm just wondering, the 2019 elections were conducted way before May 2019. If we had to, as a political party, and a serious big one at that, one would have thought that perhaps the review would have been done by the end of 2019 at the minimum to say, what happened, what went wrong, what can we do better, and the results should have been out latest by 2020. Just thinking,
Like I said, it's never too late, and at least it has happened.
But it is late. I didn't say it was too late. I'm asking if it was late. If you consider
it's not late. We still have time to actually put our acts together.
Okay.
Yes.
If you say so. So now that you're talking about merit instead of zoning, are they mutually exclusive?
Well, you can place them side by side. It depends on the decision, the ones you want to follow. Both of them has their advantages and disadvantages. And for the party to have, come this far to say we are working on merit, we are going to be on the side of merit this time, I think is quite commendable in the sense that when the recommendation was, being read, what came to my mind was that why, and after the report, was read by the chairman of the committee, and what readily came to my mind was, why are people saying that PDP didn't do zoning? Even being on the side of merit is zoning on its, in itself. It's just that it doesn't say pick from me and pick from me. It's zoning on itself because it's a decision you have taken. Being on the side, saying we are taking meritocracy as a decision now is zoning on itself.
PDP didn't do zoning where? For the 2019 elections or for what elections?
Zoning has always been part. They've been doing zoning at some point, until when it was altered, I think in 2015 or so, and then we all saw what happened. Now, largely, what PDP is trying to do is to press the reset button, is to reorganize itself for Nigeria, in preparation for 2023. They have come up with far-reaching recommendations that can actually help this country, and that should be commended. And I think the leadership will take that report holistically and implement it. It's very, very important. Some of the things they said, you agree with me, are quite fundamentals. Very quite fundamental. Look at They talked about this zone that people are talking about. As far as I know, that's what some of us, especially the young lad in the party, have been talking about. We need to take merit. We need to use merit in our selection process. See, you can never achieve good governance if merit is jettisoned. And at some point, you need to take that hard decision. That, okay, we have to do this. We've been doing zoning, we've been doing whether it's pronounced or not. It's been there, we've been doing it. Let's try the other side. Let's see where this will take us. And that's exactly what PDP is trying to do at this point in time. So for us, it's a welcome idea, especially the young lads in the party. We're happy about this. When you look at some of the recommendations, they talk about the youth inclusiveness, generational shift and gender inclusiveness. They talk about electoral reform, because the kind of governance you have is a reflection of your recruitment process. So they talk about that. They talk about militaries and police staying out of politics. They talk about quite a number of things. So as far as we are concerned in PD, we are happy about this recommendation.
It's a good thing that you mentioned the 2015 elections, because we saw the controversy that brewed then. In 2011, shortly after President Musa Yar'Adua, God rest his soul, died, there were serious agitations as to whether or not his then vice president, who became acting president, could take over from him. We saw sections of this country saying no. Our man was yet to complete his tenure. Perhaps we should have somebody else complete his tenure. And, people said, no, that's not what the Constitution of the country says. The Constitution of the country permits the president, the acting president, to be president. In fact, it says he should be president. We saw how that led into elections in 2011 and then led to elections in 2015. 2015 was a very sore point, it would seem, where it would seem that your party jettisoned zoning, which you made reference to. So when you come now to say that, merit rather than zoning will be the order of the day within the party, how has it been received by members of the party?
Sincerely, larger number of the party are very happy about, and indeed, section of Nigerians are happy about it. See, it's a recommendation that will sincerely reset this party. Okay, you said the recommendation was that it should be thrown open, because there were lots of arguments that, okay, the Southeast and the Northeast have been the least that have, amongst the entire zone that have in the production of the president, that have produced president in Nigeria. It was quite a strong argument, but Nigeria is a population of over 200 million people, and we have quite a number of eminently qualified Nigerians in the PDP and outside PDP that can actually lead the country. So the committee felt, why not let us do this? Yes, zoning, we've been talking about. It is good. But now let's move a step further and let's see how we can put this, in right perspective at least for the benefit of the country. So I know for sure that PDP would not want to repeat the mistake of the past. The PDP has gone beyond what happened in 2011 or what happened in 2015. We are looking into the future with a renewed energy, vigor, and vision. And that's what we want Nigerians we want Nigeria to be part of us in this. My message to our leaders at every point.
It's not very convincing, I must say. I'm trying to look at, assuming this was the stance of the party in, say, 2015 or 2011, how would it have changed the fortunes of the party, assuming this was the stance in 2015? Would it have had any effect whatsoever?
Yeah, well, what will certainly be. That's number one. Number two is the fact that the 2015 election was not really, this is my personal opinion, was not really about the issue of zoning. Okay? I guess it was the issue of betrayal on the part of so many members of the party at the highest level. And that was why PDP lost that election. President Jonathan did very well. He tried his best. But there was some number of the members in the party, they were perhaps not comfortable with President Goodluck Jonathan, and a lot of them did anti-party, but we don't want to go into that. We've gone, like I said, PDP has gone beyond that. So what we need now is, let us reset this nation. Let us reset the order. And that is what the PDP is talking about now.
The main rival, or your main rival, the APC, doesn't have zoning stipulated very explicitly in its own constitution.
Yes.
It will seem that there's some gentleman's agreement that has been adopted, you know, as a result of perhaps learning from what has happened in the PDP. Nonetheless, you know, for some people, they say that zoning is not something that should be openly spoken about. But it would seem that there is some agreement within political elite in the country that if it goes to the north, then at some point it should come to the south, and at some point from the south to the north, and that's how they believe it should be. Some people will say, how is that not taking merit into consideration? After all, they're eminently qualified people in every section of this country.
Oh, I really, sincerely, I really do not like to talk about APC and their politics. I have to be frank with you, and my reason is not far-fetched. It is their problem. Nigerians are waiting for the decision they want to take. I don't envy them. They are in a quagmire, and they should try as much as possible to solve it in the interest of Nigeria, as PDP has done. PDP is looking forward, bringing solution. They understand. They're listening to me. They understand that Nigerians know they're in quagmire. Whether they like let them pick their candidate from the north is their problem. It has its consequences. If they let them pick it from the south, it has its consequences.
But you followed that as well, because
we got the
2019, you fielded a candidate from the northern parts of the country.
Yes. What has it done? What has that done?
What was the defining factor then? Was it zoning or was it merit?
See, PDP has always been looking for someone who will get Nigeria back to work. PDP is interested in bringing Nigeria back to glory. PDP is interested, and that is why you saw what happened in 2019. No rancor, no crisis. I don't want to talk about the outcome of the election because Nigerians is there in the public. So I don't want to talk about it. We've moved beyond that. Supreme Court has said, okay, this is the way it is now. We have accepted it. So the truth of the matter
I'm asking, I'm not asking about the results. What I'm asking, what determined the candidate that was chosen? That's what
I just told you, because
by the PDP, was it zoning or was it merit?
It was merit. People wanted PDP wanted someone who can deliver the goods for Nigeria. And that was why they went for Atiku. You can see at the primary, it was overwhelming. So, and at the general election, we all know what happened. So, as far as we know, as far as I'm concerned, PDP is interested in winning the election. PDP is, and they believe they can do that through merit, getting someone who can fix this country back. In Nigeria, presently, the country is badly sick. We need somebody who can actually carry out surgical operation to get the country back into more normal, into position. So for some of us who are looking at events, we hope the leadership of the party, and it's our prayer that the leadership of the party will take the bull by the horns, take the hard decisions, and work for the people. It's high time our leaders in authority, declare an emergency on how to be part of the solution. Nigerians are really waiting.
What more was interesting in these particular recommendations, which you found quite interesting and you think that would take your party forward?
Restructuring.
Was that in the review of the...
Yes, it was. It was part of the recommendation. So Nigeria has to, because we need to decentralize powers.
Restructuring your party?
No, talking about the larger... No, for the party, they talked about internal democracy. We need to deepen democracy. And it's a sure way to go. Because if you don't do that, our recruitment process will continue to get faulty. They talk about electoral act, which I believe the party must begin to talk about, and Nigerians must put their voices in that. It's very, very key. Because if we don't do that, it's going to remain same of the same, and we don't want that now. And that's why PDP is looking ahead. Say, let us do this. Let us leave the old ways of doing things and bring something new. Let us consider merits.
Internal democracy is a very interesting one. Let's quickly go to Lagos now to see if they have more questions on that particular one. Gentlemen.
Well, thank you, Mokwe. Mr. Fabi, I'm just wondering, we understand zoning from a particular zone. In this context, could you define what merit is?
Oh, thank you very much. When you talk of merit, you are talking of capacity. Somebody who can actually do the job. Somebody putting square peg in square hole, not square peg in round hole. That is what merit is talking about. We need somebody who can actually do the job.
Well, how do we determine that,
That's what
Mr.
Fabi, talking about.
How do we determine that, given that ultimately there could be, as one of my colleagues has already said, there could be zoning in merit and merit in zoning. So are we going to have a CV of the person? Are we going to say, okay, this person is going to get a job because of this that is done? Or because the person is having some compelling financial power or economic power, or just what exactly is it? Because it's easy to say put a square peg in round hole or round peg in square hole. Just break it down so people can understand what this whole merit concept is as far as the PDP is concerned.
Thank you, Kaudi. For me, we need to look beyond sentiments, shenanigans, because our success do not really lie in those areas, but our success only lies, and our success does not lie in the fear of the unknown. Our success lies in taking hard decisions. Merit, as I know and as everybody knows, suggests that you need someone. Look at this dear situation Nigeria has found itself today. You need someone who can actually do the turnaround. And this has to, some of the things that will ensure this is a personality, number one, that has the experience, that has the intellect, that has the temperament, that the entire section of Nigeria will be comfortable to work with at its emergence. So this is what we are talking about. We need somebody that Nigerians will look and say, yes, we know he has been there, he has been tested, he has the capacity. It goes beyond financial power, it goes beyond that. But it goes beyond the personality of the person who Nigerians can be comfortable with, can relate with, that has the capacity we are facing a lot of issue of detribalization in Nigeria now, somebody who can actually address that.
Just one moment.
You know,
if you can hear me, just a moment. Just a moment, Mr. Fabi. How will you determine the consensus? Is it just going to be one person that's going to show up, or a number of people are going to show up and they will still be voting based on merit? So
no, it's not going to be one person. When you listen to when you read the recommendation of the committee, it said throw it open. It means that every interested person in the presidency or leadership of the country will come out and sell him or herself to the people, and people would assess them based on their record, based on the antecedent, based on what they've done and what they've done in the past, and they are still doing presently. So a lot of it's not going to be limited to one person. See, this is guaranteed under the Constitution of Federal Republic of Nigeria, the fundamental human right to contest, to aspire to do anything. So if you try to stop anybody from that, that means you are violating that section of our Constitution. So anybody who is interested, everybody will come to the table. There will be criteria for the selection. That is why PDP has what we call screening session before election. They look at your records, it goes beyond the document you are presenting. They look at your antecedent, they look at what you have done in the past. So these are the things that will culminate into choosing or picking somebody to lead the country, the party, and automatically lead the country.
I think the coming days will be quite interesting in defining what exactly merit means, demystifying this term, because clearly it can mean a lot of things. It can mean the backing of people from a certain zone. It can mean financial power and the rest. But, I mean, we've touched on that. But I'd also like to touch on internal democracy, which Mokwe was, latching onto before we came to Lagos. And if you've listened to reactions from different groups, for example, take Ohanaeze Ndigbo saying that this decision to go the way of merit instead of zoning is despicable. In fact, most despicable, unreflective, and uncautionable. Basically saying, we are not for this. I mean, we have waited for this, and all of a sudden you're saying this might not come here. So in terms of internal democracy, these are still recommendations, am I right? Have they been adopted by the party?
No, the party, the committee just submitted their recommendation. The party will look, the organs of the party will look, and we have the NWC that will work on it, and then move to the National Executive Council. At some point, the Board of Trustees can come in, and then the party will look into it. The party, one thing I want Nigerians to know is that the party is serious about it. The party is genuine about it. The party is concerned about the state of Nigeria, and that is why you are seeing these responses. The committee went around the country, consulted widely, among the party members, even beyond party members, got people outside the party who would not have a biased opinion to come before they come to this point. And just like you said, it's going to be quite interesting. And what is paramount to us now is to get Nigeria working again. And that is what the party is trying to look for, that person that can get Nigeria working again.
So let me just rephrase this. Has the PDP decided that for the 2023 elections, we're going the way of merit, or you still put this to some form of internal democracy, allow people vote, as it were, and say, which do we go by?
But whether PDP has not really said that, like I said, that's why I said the committee just submitted their recommendation. So the party will look at it and now take a position. That is the way. That's where we are now. They will look at it, then take a position and say, Nigerians, this is what we want to do. But it's good that it's been a subject of scrutiny by the public in the public space. Let me say this: the recommendation of the committee has responded to so many unanswered questions in the past, and we have to take it from there. And I say this with all sense of responsibilities that they have responded. They have answered whether the South is they have given answers to the questions of the Southwest, from the Southeast, and even the Northeast, by saying, "See, you are free to contest. We are not going to say it must be this person, it must be this one. You are free to do." Now, they've not shut out any of the zone from contesting with this. If the party should just go by this recommendation, it means the party has not shut down anybody from contesting. It's a direct response to so many questions that have been asked everywhere.
Well, I think it's a fine place to leave it, Mr. Oladimeji Fabiyi. In the coming days, will determine, as they say, the taste of the pudding is in the eating. We'll wait to see, just how the PDP practices it and how it eventually, sits well with the members of the party.
Okay, do you know why Channel is succeeding? Because the founder and the management chose merit over zoning. Chairman of Channel could have said, "I'm picking everybody from Edo State." Perhaps channels will not be where they are. We need to do things differently, and that's what PDP is saying. Well, you guys are doing well.
Zoning is
a workforce.
So zoning in some instances is to ensure fairness. So
even in merit, there's fairness in merit.
Okay, so we'll see how it's eventually practiced within the ranks.
So PDP has responded to zoning questions.
Within political
Nigerians
parties.
should support us.
Yes. We'll see how that eventually pans out.
Thank you very
All
much.
the best to you and your party. Thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you.
Oladimeji Fabiyi is a member of the PDP and has been talking to us on the recent review carried out in the 2019 elections. Sunrise Daily continues in a moment. Please don't go away.
But, hours after that High Court judgment, and Owerri High Court issued a counter order, and the State High Court granted an order of interim injunction restraining INEC from recognizing Senator Ararume as Imo North senatorial candidate of the All Progressives Congress, or issue him certificate of return or any other instrument in his favor, and they say in respect of the said election, pending determination and hearing of the motion on notice in that case. This followed an application by a motion ex-party, actually, which was brought to it by All Progressives Grand Alliance. That's one Mr. Kelechi Soribe, a member of the Imo State Working Committee of ABGA, and 5 others against Senator Ararume, INEC, and the APC. So that happens to be the bone of contention. But now we're going to hear a lot more as we progress. Mark, do you want to introduce those guests?
Indeed, Chamberlain, thank you. We have with us Mr. Tunde Falola, who's the man you saw earlier. He's the counsel to the plaintiffs, counsel to Mr. Ararume, and he's with us now at Abuja Studios. We also have with us Mr. Oseloka Zikora, who is the spokesperson of the Frank Ibezim Campaign Organization. Gentlemen, you're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you, Mobe, for having us.
Thank you very much for having me around.
So you spoke immediately after the court gave the judgment yesterday, and you seemed rather happy with the judgment. But right now, I don't know if has your victory been cut short by this ex parte motion coming from Uweri?
Thank you very much for having me around, and good morning, Nigerians. Indeed, you were happy yesterday, and up to now we are still happy, because in the face of the law, there's really nothing to worry about. The judgment that was delivered by Federal High Court yesterday, per Honorable Justice Taiwo Taiwo, was a judgment, that dealt with, issues canvassed by, parties. It was a judgment that determined the right of the parties. It was a judgment, that took into cognizance the hearing, argument, and what have you. So it is a final judgment as far as the jurisdiction of that court is concerned. And unless and until that judgment is set aside, there's nothing to worry about. The judgment, the ruling you are talking about, we are not aware. We just read it, the media, and we are surprised that that kind of order was made. Because in the first place, no court of concurrent jurisdiction has, the jurisdiction to set aside or sit on an appeal of a judgment, of a court of equal jurisdiction. In other words, Federal Court and High Court of a state, as it were, in this case, Federal Court in Owerri has no that jurisdiction, but under the law, the Constitution, to set aside the judgment delivered by Federal Court here in Abuja. The reason being that, in our whole matter, the court took evidence, both documentary and what have you. We made submission, we addressed the court. So it was a judgment, that was conclusive.
Is that what this ex parte motion has done? Has it set it aside, or is just telling INEC, do not recognize this person yet until this is sorted out?
The order was made without jurisdiction. INEC is a federal government agency. It is only Federal High Court that has power to compel or issue order against INEC. You can't go to a state court, a state high court, and have to another against a federal agency. Authority has settled on this, so there is no no cause to worry about. And INEC, I have to tell you, is not bound to obey that court order. I say this because the order was made, without by concealing facts. Because if His Lordship, if he has taken into consideration all the facts and the antecedent of this case, he wouldn't have given that kind of order. So is it that the court was misinformed, or the applicant that went there, deliberately, conceal facts, from that court? So ordinarily, this is a matter that started in December. The Imo North senatorial election, took place in December. So the question we had to ourselves is, where was APGA between December and March this year? Where were they? Are they going to tell Nigerians that they are not aware of the pendency of a suit at the Federal High Court? Are they going to tell Nigeria that they are not aware that nobody has been issued certificates of return until yesterday when the court order? So where were they when we filed this suit, when other parties, were in court?
So you have no fears that INEC could recognize that particular judgment?
No, it's not possible. It's not possible. It's elementary. It's elementary.
Okay.
It's elementary. A court of coordinate jurisdiction has no power to set aside, because by implication, what you are saying is that INEC should not obey, a valid and subsisting order of a federal court, when indeed they are not a court of appeal by virtue of the provision of Section 41 of the 1989 Constitution. It's only court of appeal that can set aside that decision, because it was a final decision, and it determined, the right of the parties before the court.
Let me come to you, Mr. Zikora.
Yes.
Your candidate seems to be holding the short end of the stick right now within the ranks of the APC. How are you taking this? Do you intend to appeal?
We have already filed a notice of appeal on the motion for stay of execution of the judgment of Justice Taiwo. And let me state here that we find that judgment very strange. We find it strange in the sense that we don't even know what that suit should be called within the realm to categorize that suit. Was it a pre-election matter? or a post-election matter? I ask this because every other action that is taken before an election forms a pre-election matter. The issue that my good friend that canvassed in the court is supposed to be a pre-election matter. And the action that they were not happy with was the action of submitting the name of Chukwuma Francis Ibezim to INEC as the validly nominated candidate of the APC. That nomination was done and submitted to INEC on 13th September 2020. By virtue of the law, if you have any grounds concerning that, you should file an action in the court within 14 days to set aside whatever has been done by the party. The current judgment that we're talking, suit that they gave judgment on yesterday, was not filed within 14 days. It was filed after the election of December 5th, 2020. Now, if it was filed after the election of December 5th, 2020, what is it then? Is it a post-election matter? If it is a post-election matter, the Electoral Act clearly states that all post-election matters shall be treated by a competent tribunal or court. And the competent tribunal or court, it says that competent tribunal shall be, in the case of the presidential election, the Court of Appeal. In the case of all other elections, it should be the tribunal. There is a tribunal that has already been set up concerning the election of the Imo North senatorial by-election. And he knows that they are also in that tribunal. So we don't really understand what informed the judgment of the Honorable Justice Taiwo.
But you were parties in the suit.
Yeah, we argued these matters. We argued these matters, and yesterday he mentioned the fact that he's not aware of any appeal concerning the disqualification of Sir Francis Ibezim by a Federal High Court in Abuja, that he's not aware of any appeal. Yet in the same breath before he mentioned that, he discountenanced the motion which sought to stop the judgment because we considered the suit an abuse of court process because the plaintiff was seeking the same reliefs at the Supreme Court by way of a cross appeal. He discountenanced that by the fact that the plaintiff argued that he has withdrawn the cross appeal at the Supreme Court. He ruled against that motion. Now he goes ahead to say that he's not aware of any appeal. What was the cross appeal for? The cross appeal was done concerning an already existing appeal by Sir Frank Ibezim, which is already underway at the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has fixed a day for hearing on the 23rd of March, that is next week. So we thought that Justice Taiwo should have exercised discretion to have at least waited for the Supreme Court to have ruled on the issue of disqualification, which is his main key of arriving at the decision that Sir Frank Ibezim is not the candidate of the APC. And by the way, the major problem with this is that the issue of the candidature for APC has already been settled. It has already been settled.
By who?
By both the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court.
I think you have to comment.
Let me finish this point. Let me finish this point.
You'll have your time.
The Court of Senator Godwin Ararume got a judgment of the Federal High Court, Owerri, to replace the name, directing INEC to replace the name of Sir Francis Ibezim as the candidate of the APC for the by-election with his name. When he got that consequential order, it was appealed against. And the Court of Appeal set aside that judgment of the Federal High Court. When the Court of Appeal set aside that judgment of the Federal High Court, that means that the consequential order that he received, which made him a candidate for a few days, is no longer in place. It was as if it never happened. So by material fact, that means that the candidate of the APC, from the time his name was submitted to INEC on 13 September till the election date, was Sir Francis Ibezim. That same judgment of the Court of Appeal that sat in Owerri was appealed against at the Supreme Court by Senator Ararumi. And the Supreme Court ruled on 5th of February this year, upholding the judgment of the Court of Appeal, invocating, dismissing, setting aside the judgment of the High Court that replaced Ibezim's name. That clearly finalizes the issue of who the candidate of the APC is.
Well,
the APC candidate for the election is Sir Francis Ibezim. As to the issue of ongoing litigation...
No, let him quickly respond to this one.
Oh, thank you. First and foremost, I'm surprised the way my friend is addressing Nigerians, because it seems most of his submission tends to mislead the public. I said this because he's not a lawyer.
Well, that's why you're here. So
yeah, he's not a lawyer. I'm surprised why their lawyer is not here. Their lawyers, let me trace the history of the case. As at the time, our client, Senator Ifeanyi, that has been declared the winner of that election, went to the poll. There were two judgments. We have judgment of the Federal Court, Owerri Judicial Division, and we have judgment of the Federal Court, Abuja Judicial Division. Owerri Federal Court decision.
They are courts of coordinate jurisdiction.
Yes, on different parties and on different issue. Now, Owerri, Federal Court Owerri, ordered or declared that the participation of their client, that is a Frank Ibezim, at that primary, was a nullity because they had been disqualified ab initio. So that issue went to Court of Appeal. So when Court of Appeal took that decision, the Court of Appeal held that this same Frank Ibezim that the lower court said, did not participate, legally, he didn't participate legally at the primary. He was not joined as a party in that suit. So on that basis, the Court of Appeal nullified the decision of the Federal Court. The same matter went to Supreme Court, and what the Supreme Court did was to affirm the decision of the Court of Appeal, Owerri Judicial Division. So in that case, the issue of the status of our client was never, an issue. I'm coming.
Excuse me.
So I'm coming. At that decision, hold on.
Bring out. You're a lawyer.
Let him bring out the judgment.
You're a lawyer. Excuse me. You're a lawyer.
Hold on, gentlemen. Let him quickly clarify.
Let me clarify.
You're a lawyer, so don't mislead the public.
Hold on. Yeah, when you are talking,
you actually just interrupted me.
So that decision, even up to the Supreme Court, there was no any pronouncement by the Supreme Court that our client, was not qualified or that he was not the candidate of the APC.
So what judgment came out of the Supreme Court?
The Supreme Court judgment just affirmed the decision of the Court of Appeal to the extent that the lower court cannot make an order against a party who is not joined in the proceeding. So the Supreme Court affirmed the decision of Court of Appeal that set aside that decision. That was number one. Number two, the judgment of Honorable Justice Eko of the Federal High Court, Abuja here, disqualified their candidate that he presented forged documents to INEC. He's here. Let him defend it. So that decision was also affirmed by the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal affirmed that, look, Francis Ibezim
Ebezim, Francis, they are not, one and the same thing. So the Court of Appeal affirmed the disqualification of their candidate. So, and up to today, he remained disqualified.
But he
now,
raised the fundamental question. Hold on, let me quickly bring the question to light as to whether or not this is a pre-election matter.
I'm coming to that.
Please quickly address it.
Now,
so
on that issue, as a lawyer, I won't sit here and be discussing a matter, that is, that's been finally decided. They have lawyers at that court. Their position, is contrary to what he's saying. Now he's saying that the matter was not filed within 14 days, so it was neither pre-election matter or whatever. That was not their position. Their position at that court was that, number one, that it is their candidate that ought to have been declared because he was the one that participated. In any event, the issue of jurisdiction, which he has raised now, it is of no moment. Because our own case before the court is that having participated at that Imo North Senatorial election, and INEC haven't declared the political party that sponsor our client. The Independent National Electoral Commission ought to have issued the certificate of return because I haven't declared the party as the winner, and I participated. He participated throughout.
How did he participate? The right question to ask.
I'm coming.
The right question to ask.
The position of the law is that.
Let him land.
The position of the law is that if I have a right as a citizen, there should be means, of enforcing that right, and that is why we went to court. Court compelled these people, Independent National Electoral Commission, to declare our candidate because haven't participated, haven't won that election, and INEC haven't declared the party as the winner of the election. There is no reason why our client should not be.
I'm wondering though, was your candidate's name submitted to
INEC
at any point in time?
Yeah, it was submitted.
Okay.
It was submitted.
But it was taken off.
I'm coming.
By an order.
Was the name submitted or not? Let him tell Nigerians.
Okay.
Whether by order, was the name submitted?
Was the name submitted?
Yes.
Okay.
Let me clarify this.
No,
the name that was submitted to
submitted?
INEC on 13th September 2020 for the by-election is the name of Sir Francis Ibezim. A Federal High Court in Owerri gave a consequential order to replace his name with that of Senator Ararume, which was done. But the Court of Appeal set aside that judgment. Now, my question to him as a lawyer is that if a Court of Appeal sets aside a judgment, is it set aside in part or in whole? The judgment of the High Court was set aside, completely nullifying the issue of that replacement ab initio. That means it is assumed that the implication of this is that since APC submitted the name of Sir Francis Ibezim on 13 September till the election was held, the APC candidate was Sir Francis Ibezim, not Senator Ifeanyi Ararume.
Okay.
So the issue there, and I want to.
Gentlemen, I'm sorry. Let's quickly.
Let me ask him a question, please. Let him tell us part of the judgment of that Court of Appeal and Supreme Court that says.
Let's quickly take this to Lagos now, gentlemen. Chamberlain.
Oh yeah, Mr. Falola, did hear you say initially that the Owerri Court cannot give this judgment that they've given because it's on the same matter. But at the same time, you also did say that some other cases can be given if they are different cases. But we also understand that what was the crux of the matter in Owerri is because they are arguing that Senator Ararume did not resign his membership on the board of APGA, and that is what this case is about. So there are two separate matters which was filed by APGA. So isn't that judgment the right decision since there are two separate matters from the court in Owerri?
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Chamberlain. Let me make this one clear. I'm not abreast of the fact of the case at Owerri. I just read it in the media, just like you have explained now. But the point we are making here is this. Assuming without considering that actually the man did not resign his membership. And, as a judge, of court of coordinate jurisdiction, can that court make a valid order that will seem to set aside, a decision, a final decision of a competent court of jurisdiction? The answer is no. What we are saying is this. a judge of a high court cannot set aside a decision, final decision for that matter, of another high court. Because federal court and high court of a state, they are both a high court. Now they are court of coordinate jurisdiction. What we expect, or what one would have expected them to do, if they are not satisfied by the decision of Honorable Justice Taiwo delivered yesterday, is to file an appeal by virtue of the provision of Section 241 of the 1999 Constitution, not to go and do forum shopping. Because even as Nigerians, we ask ourselves, how come that within less than 24 hours, when the federal court deliver a final decision, we have another counter
but Mr. Falola,
how
now,
come
just a minute. Let me put this in.
We are trying
hang on a minute, Mr. Falola.
To ridicule the judiciary.
Yeah, but
just
hold on.
Not going to be a
if
party
the
to
case
that.
has
And we're
been,
also urging INEC.
Just a minute. If the case had
not
already
to
been ongoing,
fall into that trap.
I hope you can hear me, Mr. Falola. Just hold on. Now, if this case has been ongoing, and then they're about to deliver a judgment, and which they did yesterday, are you saying that they should have disregarded all the previous processes because a judgment had been given somewhere else on a separate matter entirely?
No, the point is this. As you've rightly observed, it was an interim order. The question is, when did they file the matter? When did they file the matter? And when was their own action filed? We started this case since December last year. How come ABGA or whoever that went to court, they did not consider it necessary to come and join in our own suit? When was the matter filed? And when a court gives an interim order, it presupposes that hearing has not commenced. It's a new suit. Interim order, please stop this party, temporarily. So it is a temporary order, unlike our own matter. Our own matter is a final decision of a competent court of jurisdiction, and it is only an appellate court that can set aside, that decision. We have practices in the past where we have counter order. The court of coordinate jurisdiction. One will make order today. Tomorrow we have another counter order. This is exactly what is happening in Nigeria now. And as lawyers and as legal practitioners, we are not going to be party to abuse of the process of the honorable courts. What I mean by that is that you can't be doing forum shopping. Today you went to you go to Asaba. Tomorrow you go to Lagos to obtain order over a similar matter. So the issue you should ask them is that when was the matter filed? This matter where interim injunction was obtained, when was the matter filed?
All right, we'll get Mr. Zikora to respond when we return in a moment. Don't go away. Welcome back. Mr. Zikora, go ahead and respond, please.
Yes. While we are not abreast with the details of the case at Federal High Court Owerri, but permit me to say that the issue of forum shopping that my friend is talking about seems to be what he has been doing, because he went to the Supreme Court on a cross appeal to seek the same reliefs that he suddenly found maybe he could get quicker at the Federal High Court Abuja. So he withdraws the cross appeal that he had filed at the Supreme Court and goes to get a judgment at the Federal High Court Abuja. And this is despite the fact that the basis upon which that judgment is given, which is that Ibezim was disqualified, is currently pending at the Supreme Court on an appeal. And I'll read you what the Supreme Court says about such matters. It says that even though the subsistence of appeal against the decision of a lower court per se will not operate as a stay of execution, it may amount to contempt of the appeal court for the lower court to proceed with enforcement of its judgment during the subsistence of the appeal, the fact of which the lower court is seized of. So what does that say? Since Justice Taiwo is aware that there is a pending appeal concerning this matter of disqualification of Sir Francis Ibezim by a Federal High Court in Abuja, that it amounts to contempt of the Supreme Court to go ahead to give a judgment and direct INEC to issue a certificate of return to Senator Arume within 72 hours. That is very strange. That is really very strange. And per se, too, to note that we've already filed a motion of stay of execution and a notice of appeal against that judgment.
Right.
And meanwhile, these issues will, of course, be finalized by the Supreme Court once the Supreme Court finishes its proceedings on the appeal that has been brought by my principal, that's Sir Francis Ibezi.
Well, Mr. Zikora, there's a question that I think we've not answered, or you have not answered, and that's concerning the ex parte motion at the Owerri Court yesterday. When was it filed? When was the matter filed?
I will not know because I'm not a member of OPGA, but you will note that what OPGA is looking for, that's what OPGA is filed, are issues that are not connected with the Federal High Court ruling in Abuja. And I'm sure that as at the time that this case, even the Federal High Court judgment had not been given. So they are there on their own to settle scores with Senator Ifeanyi Ararume. So the order has been given, though interim it is an order, and INEC is bound to obey it until it is set aside, however foolish that anyone may think the order is.
But clearly, your candidate is a beneficiary of that motion, and you're gracefully latching onto it.
Gratefully latching onto it. We don't need to. We don't need to actually, because why we don't need to is, even though that order has been given to INEC, by virtue of the fact that we have put a notice of appeal and a motion of a stay of execution, by what I have told you that the Supreme Court's opinion is, that INEC would not be in a position per se to issue any certificate of return to Senator Francis, to Senator Ararume.
I don't quite get that part, because clearly a federal high court just asked INEC to give him a certificate of return in 72 hours. So is there another conflicting judgment against that?
Conflicting judgment. The conflicting judgment is that there is an interim order from the Owerri High Court on a separate matter, which also restrains INEC from granting any recognition to Senator Ararume as the winner of the Imo North by-election.
Well, Mr. Zikora,
so
yet again, you're saying you just said you don't need to latch onto that, but I mean that's what you're quoting now. But I know that Mr. Falola wants to respond to some of the issues that have been raised. Mr. Falola, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Let me correct an impression here. Like I said, I did say, at the outset of this interview, it is unfortunate that their lawyer is not here. Most of this issue is canvassing here had been dealt with by the court. The issue of pendency of an appeal and the judgment of the Supreme Court, came on board during the trial, and the court ordered all parties to come and address it on the propriety or otherwise of the judgment of the Supreme Court. First of all, the judgment just delivered yesterday. The court took our argument, including their own counsel. All of us were in court. We addressed the courts on the propriety or otherwise of whether a subsisting appeal or on the decision already delivered by the Supreme Court. And the court, having duly considered those arguments, came to a conclusion that the pending appeal at the Supreme Court, or court of appeal as it were, or the decision already delivered by the Supreme Court has nothing to do, in respect of this case. And he went ahead and delivered the judgment. So I'm surprised that he has to come here and be addressing Nigerian on issue that was duly confirmed by their lawyer before the court. That's number one. I'm coming. Please don't interrupt me. Now he's talking about interim order, and he knows. Let me presume that he knows that an interim order, at times it lapses, depending on the rules of court, it lapses for just 14 days. It's an interim order. In our own case, we have a final judgment of a court of competent jurisdiction. The court, it took all the arguments of parties. It took the addresses all the parties and came to, a logical conclusion that our client, he is the rightful person that ought to be issued that certificate of return. If anybody is not pleased by this judgment, for heaven's sake, the best option for them is to appeal. Go to court of appeal.
Mr. Falola, just one last thing.
The judgment.
Just one last thing from me here. All of these circumstances has pretty much put INEC in a very, very difficult position, and it will seem the entire political landscape, so to speak, because the Constitution, the Electoral Act does not recognize a situation where INEC declares a party without a candidate. Now, you are a lawyer, and speak to us from the point of law. How significant a confusion has this situation created?
Thank you very much. Let me say clearly that there's no confusion here. Because if you look at the interim order they are parading around, the question you had to say was that order made by a court, or the court has jurisdiction to have made that order in the first place? How can you make an order against a federal government agency? INEC, for goodness sake, it's a federal government agency. It's only Federal High Court that can make a valid order against INEC. You can't go to State High Court, and ask, for an order. They know what they are doing. How come did they go to Owerri when a judgment was delivered, in Abuja just yesterday, within 24 hours? Where was the matter filed? That's the question you should tell us. Because they want to leverage on that interim order and continue to, misinform Nigeria that, INEC has to obey. INEC cannot comply with that kind of order because INEC too, they have a legal department, and they will be appropriately advised.
I could respond to this. I think that basically that part of this issue, part of the confusion that we have, is that INEC actually did not ab initio issue certificate of return to Sir Francis Ibezim, being the validly nominated candidate of the APC in that election. The issue of disqualification, which INEC based that there are several court orders and what have you, is tried in law. And I have said, I've already quoted that once a matter is on appeal, you cannot continue to implement any decision, that's execute any decision that was made by a lower court. And let me again read what the appeal court said about this. It says it is true and correct to observe that the notice of appeal filed will not operate as a stay of execution. And Section 24 of the Supreme Court Act makes this more clear. But it is equally correct to point out that the section does not prescribe in favor of any execution being carried out during the pendency of an appeal. So for INEC to have wasted time, continue wasting time to have issued the certificate of return to Sir Francis Ibezim is what is causing this problem. And as far as I am concerned...
right now, the judgment that has been obtained by Senator Ararume is, stipulates a time frame within which it has to be issued a certificate of return.
However, there is also valid law to say that judgment, that INEC is not obliged to obey that judgment because there is a pending Supreme Court appeal. And the law states quite clear that you cannot execute a judgment when there is an appeal going on.
I'm coming.
You made
As at today,
yes,
there is no appeal against the judgment of Federal Court delivered yesterday. So INEC is bound, to obey that law. The judgment is a judgment in rem. A judgment is a judgment that defines the status of parties.
There is an appeal. There's a notice of appeal.
I'm coming. That judgment, it is binding on every authority, including INEC. It's a judgment in rem.
There is a
it
notice
binds
of appeal.
The whole world.
there is a notice of appeal.
There's not notice. We are not
There
aware.
is a notice
I'm
of
coming.
appeal which has been served
I'm
on
coming.
some
Even from what he has just quoted,
Yeah.
does the notice of appeal, assuming without considering that it's a notice of appeal, does it operate as a stay? The answer is no. As of today,
but it says,
the judgment was
says
delivered
there,
yesterday.
it says
There is no
this
notice of
section does
appeal
not
against that
prescribe
decision
in favor.
of Honorable Justice Taiwo.
It
And
says
INEC
it is-
Gentlemen, we have to leave this conversation.
This does not prescribe in favor of any execution being carried out
We
during
have
the
to leave.
pendency of an appeal.
We
There's an
have
appeal
to
process
leave
already
this here,
on.
but it's obvious that we haven't heard the last on this particular
Of
matter.
course.
So let us see how things eventually pan out. But we have to thank you both for coming on Sunrise Elite this morning. Mr. Tunde Falola.
Thank you very much.
Is counsel to Senator Arume, and Mr. Oseloka Zikora is spokesperson of the Sir Frank Imizim Campaign Organization. Gentlemen, thank you for
Thank
coming
you,
to our
Mark, for
studios this
having
morning.
us.
Well, Sunrise Elite continues in a moment. Please stay with us.
Welcome back. Wow. Well, yeah, we've got Mr. Uche Oji here with us. He's the Commissioner for Information and Orientation, Ebonyi State. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today. I know you're just sitting down there, just seeing how all of this is playing out. Lots of things going through your mind. But wait a minute. This is an ABC matter, which happens to be your party. So I wonder what was going through your mind while you were watching all of these things.
As a matter of fact, issues in the court are not meant to be discussed outside the court. And so I won't speak about that until the court does determine or gives a terminal determination on all the issues.
Well, in this case, many of them judgments have been given. And so, yes, people can comment on when judgments have been delivered. But moving forward, talking about the NSAS matter, there's lots of sittings, different panels in different parts of the country. I know Ebonyi State, they say that they want to work with the youths to see how they can improve their lot and what exactly to do that will give long-lasting results. I think perhaps remains a little divided because there are different opinions across different parts of the country. But your state is approaching it in a particular way. I'm just wondering, what kind of impact is it having? I know the governor, they say they're setting aside some money for these people. So are you getting any results as of yet?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, issues of the agitations of the protesters of NSAS are issues that have national concern. And going by what happened, the monumental loss that we did encounter last year, I think every government in every jurisdiction has to really look at the agitations and the concerns of our youths and all the non-governmental organizations that trooped out in the streets to protest. And that was what informed even Mr. President's decision to set up a committee to look at how the various jurisdictions can dialogue with the youths. And so the federal government did encourage all jurisdictions to really engage the youths through summit or conference, through a dialogue to say, what can we do to have a better Nigeria? And the governor being proactive, being a person that had to really convoke a 7-day youth summit. And of course, the issues are very clear, the thematic areas that should be discussed. One is on job creation, how to use the entertainment industry to really create job, create wealth, issue of security, good governance at all level, education, and all of that, even digital economy. And so youths were drawn on a quality basis from each of the local government areas. And of course, some state-based non-governmental organizations were also invited. A total of 1,500 number youths came to a conference. And in the first 3 days, they were really made to really, to be really brushed by resource persons on what should be discussed. Then the last 3 days was for them to really give a feedback, their own impression about all the issues in the thematic areas. Now, is it making an impact? Yes. Going by the communique, you can see that there is consciousness on the side of the youths on how this country can continue to move forward as a virile nation. Now, they had to discuss always communicate on some issues, including how to really get the youths mainstreamed in national politics. You know, they also suggested that, if possible, let there be 50% affirmative action for the youths. And again, let there be a kind of youth training institute in all states of the Federation to raise our youths who are going to be leaders of tomorrow. These are some of the issues that they raised in their communique. Of course, they did advise that every government must look into going forward, you know, tapping into the potentials of the youth through engaging them in active politics and governance.
Clearly, Mr. Oji, there is so many issues that were raised at that point, but for your state, what were the learning points? What were the things you discovered about the peculiarity of the youth population in your state?
As a matter of fact, we did discover that we have a lot of potentials in our youths. The youths are the leaders of tomorrow. And we also saw there is a total disconnect, virtually total disconnect between the government and the youths in terms of taking advantage of their potentialities in the area of creative industry, in the area of digital economy, in the area of bringing their ingenuity into governance. And of course, we do know that in the history of governance in Nigeria, we keep turning, leaders. You see a leader that was like an office holder in the last 20 years is still there at the corridors of power. You see a man who is over 60 years is still there. The son who is 30 years has not been given opportunity to be a councillor. These are all pertinent, crucial, burning national issues that need to be focally addressed. And it is only when that is done that all of these agitations can now go down. So I think that we are sitting on a time bomb if we don't really squarely address all issues that the youths are raising, not only in Ebonyi State. But I think that we've taken a step moving forward by ensuring our current government does ensure that in all appointments we give youths a very wonderful opportunity. Like in the Executive Council, we have 110 non-biased members, but out of them we have no less than 80% that is youth, including myself. And of course, the governor had to really embark on what we call mentorship, whereby technical assistants, senior technical assistants, executive assistants, we are drawn from among the youth to just give them mentorship. Of course, our governor operates an institutional kind of government. He is in himself an institution. And so to understudy him is very, very important. To understudy our leaders by these youths is very critical. And that has really helped Ebonyi State. And that is why you are seeing the progress that we have made, which I may talk about in due course.
Of course, we'll get to that, but it's also quite interesting to hear that you're a youth. Because for some people, the definition of youth is maybe between the ages of 18 and 25, 30, but clearly the boundaries are limitless these days. But when you talk about affirmative action, which is quite important, and you say that you've noticed that there are people in government that were there 20 years ago, I just wonder, for example, would you be retiring before the next 20 years such that you can give a chance to other young people to attain the kind of position you're in right now? What's the conversation around those in leadership right now such that in the next 20 years we won't be saying, well, we saw them in government 20 years ago and they're still there?
It is actually part of national planning that we must really imbibe. I was in the House of Assembly for the first time at the age of 31. I'm about 45 years plus now, which is within the realm of a youth.
So you're a youth. Interesting.
I'm a youth. Now, there has to be a deliberate plan, a concerted plan by leaders to say, yes, even if I go into leadership, look at when I should be rounding off. There should be mentorship. There should be this followership leadership relationship such that you should know when you should be winding up. To give room for even your children, your immediate children, to be part of the governance process. And that is the way to go. I think that should be part of, the issue that our government should really look into. I know that under this arrangement by Mr. President, that after this 10-level youth summit or conference, there will be a zonal level conference by all zones. Then after that, selections will be made so that at the national level, there will be a final youth conference to resolve some of these issues. I think that youths will also insist that leaders should prepare themselves and have a leadership plan so that when you are reaching at a particular age, you should be able to give opportunity for other youths to, or younger ones to, come into governance.
That would be quite interesting to see, really. And I think for a lot of young people listening and watching, that might give them some hope that, well, I should get involved. So Ebonyi sort of blazed the trail in organizing this summit. In fact, that, I mean, one of the very first states to organize this kind of summit. Yes, we've seen the NSAS panel, but for the summit, Ebonyi blazed the trail, sort of. So in terms of KPIs, because let's be honest, we've seen summits come and go, and I mean, you can't really point to the impact of the summit, not just for the representatives. Yes, you have a few representatives, but I mean, the youth population in Ebonyi is way bigger than that. So what are you looking to achieve in the next 6 months, 1 year, such that you say, well, this summit was indeed successful?
Thank you very much. You would need to appreciate the fact that in selecting these representatives, we had to allow them to elect their representatives by themselves on equality of local government. 100 per local government plus 200 that is state-based, that have no local government catchment opportunity. And now, what are the gains? One, the governor did declare 3 billion naira empowerment program. And after that, he said that from these people that attended this program, that is going to also raise not less than 150 million to empower the people, and it will come through a process of training, a selection process that will require capacity, that will require ingenuity. You need to know what you are made of, what you want to do. And from the resource persons, we have got a commitment from a lot of people to really assist in training, because capacity is very important. That is mental training and mental empowerment. Then financial empowerment is very, very key. Now, apart from this empowerment program that is meant to be given to them, the process of this meeting, this summit, will be a continuous one. As I speak with you, a number has been selected to meet at the zonal level with other states of the Southeast to discuss further on the issues. After that, they will now take it to the national level. So these are the impacts. And as time goes on, it will raise the consciousness of our youths in the rural communities. And all the resolutions, including how to create jobs, how we can be self-sufficient, how we can be self-reliant, how not, to always look at government, because that's this saying that we should look at what we can do for our country, not what our country can do for us. But when the environment is created, you see that we have youths that can really take the future of this country into their hands. And that is the capacity we are looking at.
In spite of all that has been done, I mean, looking at some of the figures, it's indicating that Ebonyi did have a high underemployment rate for the zone. I see some 19.7, while that of unemployment, it's about 21.1%. So does that then mean that you're not hitting the target yet?
Yeah, by the recent MBS record and analysis that surrounded it, Ebonyi State, out of the 5 states of the Southeast, is the second in terms of employment and empowerment ratio, is the second best. That is the record I have. And again, apart from this, we have other indices that show that we are on the right track. Of course, we did inherit infrastructural deficit. Human capital was very poor. But from what is happening, from the records we are having, we can say authoritatively that the government has done tremendously well. I'll give you an instance. If you talk about insecurity, apart from communal problems, which are actually as a result of the fact that Ebonyi is an agrarian state, we have got no serious issue about crime. If you look at IGP crime record, you see that the case of Ebonyi is very low. And again, if you also look at the education index, under Governor Mahe, somebody from Ebonyi State made it as the best medical student that gained admission in the whole Nigeria into university. A local government from Ebonyi State made it as the local government with the highest number of people that gained admission into university under Governor Mahin's administration. The World Bank Index of 2018 said that Ebonyi State is above average in the area of health, maternal mortality ratio. And these are indices that are suggesting that we are on the right track. And of course, if you see the environment that government has curated, I keep saying, if you come to Ebonyi State, you will agree that we are no longer within the Nigeria, context of underdevelopment. We are like the Dubai of Nigeria. And that is courtesy of a singular man, Governor David Nwezumahe.
How did I know that the word was going to come forward? So is there a target as to the age bracket of who will become the next governor?
Well, I do not know, but the future belongs to our youths.
What would
voting is all about...
What's the thinking? What would the government like to see?
Yeah, from the consciousness that the youths are raising now, from the agitations, from the communique, I am thinking there will be an aggressive pursuit of enthronement of a youth, a young person, as governor. But then, there is no constitution, there is no law that says, it must be a youth. So it's a doing of the consciousness, of the will of the people. And the will of the people is the will of God.
We'll see how that plays out. Thank you very much indeed, Uche Orji, Commissioner for Information and Orientation, Ebonyi State. All right, we do have some messages, feedback coming through. Mark, you got some of them as well?
Indeed. This one is from Comrade Dari, and he says youth has really been denied all opportunity of leadership in Nigeria. It is easier said than done. The question is, how can youths come on board when even political parties make it difficult through exorbitant amounts for a nomination form? But I heard something new today. I think it was my colleague who was saying that the boundaries of youths are limitless these days. Or maybe Comrade Derek can take that into cognizance when he's posing this question. I think there's conscience waiting.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, Malquay. Take a look at this one from Conscience. Yeah, like you said, what manner of cooperation does the IGP expect from the states in spite of the humongous amount of the states expend on the police without command and control respect from the police? Except with the creation of state police, Nigeria is deceiving itself on security.
And then you see Peter saying, how about finding merit in the zone rather than approaching this merit thing from a heterozonal perspective?
We'll find his zone in the merit.
Well, Papa Donkey says, the PDP has not adopted merit over zoning. Perhaps that's your answer. The Bala Committee made a recommendation and the party will consider it. It is worth mentioning that the PDP constitution recognizes the rotation of power as a fundamental ingredient to national unity. Is that calling from an adjustment to that constitution?
No, that's from Papa Donkey.
A restructuring of the constitution. Yeah. Well, that's the show for today, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. I am Kayode Okikele.
I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a great day and a wonderful weekend.
I'm Chamberlain Uso.
Well, we still see you, Ikenna and Oliver and Famous and so on and so forth. Thank you for sending those tweets. I'm Malquay Ogun Yusuf. Have a good weekend.